Hey everyone, thank you and welcome to the Hummingbot developer call for version 0.34. This is something that we started to do a few weeks ago, and so now we're starting to get a little bit more organized in terms of sending out an invitation and letting the community know about it. I've added some information in the chat, so we'll give people about another 3 or 4 minutes to join before we start. So if you want, please. If you want, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and also list any questions that you're interested in discussing. During this call, we'll go through an overview of what's in the last release, a deep dive on the new gateway module that allows Hummingbot to connect to other protocols, and then also take some questions from the audience. Okay, well, looks like everyone who has joined has probably joined now. I'll still try to watch out for folks in the waiting room, but I think in the meantime, let's get started with the call. First of all, this is something we started doing recently, and I think something we'll probably expand on doing more of starting in next year, because the big shift we've seen from a user base this year is that we're seeing more and more developers join and use Hummingbot as the basis for something where they can build their own custom strategies, build connectors to different exchanges and protocols, and overall use it as a general kind of framework for building public trading strategy in crypto, rather than having to use the default templates that we've created for the few strategies. And this is something that we're very excited about. This is something we envisioned when we first launched Hummingbot last year, and it's incredibly exciting to all of us to see it coming to fruition. In addition, as you guys probably know, one of the main ways that we make Hummingbot sustainable is doing partnerships with different exchanges, with different connectors, and building connectors for various protocols and exchanges. And so we also want to make sure that we show the community exactly how those work, so that perhaps in the future, the community can also build additional connectors to protocols and exchanges as well. And then, in addition, custom strategies is something that we're going to be pushing a lot next year. So we're starting to, we have a concept of scripts where people can add module, like little kind of add-ons to strategies, but we think the real power is also in developing truly custom strategies that let you do whatever you want from a trading perspective. So we're starting to add boilerplate to enable that, and that's something that we'll be talking about more about in these calls next year. But for this call today, I wanted to kind of really could go over what's in the last release and drill down into the Gateway API module that we added recently to support protocol connectors. And finally, we'll also take some questions at the end from any developers who have them. So let's get into it. First of all, this is our standard disclaimer. This demo is really for instructional and educational purposes only. Anything we discuss here is really not trading or legal advice. And Hummingbot is a tool. It's an open source tool used to build your own trading strategies, but it's not investment advice or trying to kind of tell you what to do with the tool. So in 0.34, there's actually quite a lot of changes. We're still working on the release notes, so we don't have them today. But what I think I do is I can quickly go over some of the big highlights of what was in the last release. So currently, to make sure everyone kind of knows how Hummingbot works, we always commit interim changes to the development branch on GitHub. And then every time we have a release, which is approximately every 4 weeks, we take that development branch and we merge all the changes to the master branch. And that set of changes constitutes a release. So typically, we aim to do it on around Tuesday morning, Asia time, or Monday night, in the US. And so tonight, we will be creating the release notes for 0.34, merging the development branch to master, and then creating the binaries for Windows and Mac installers and updating our websites. So that process should happen probably around in the morning Asia time, and then the way we notify everyone is that we send out the newsletter, which basically has the release notes and has information about the release. So, but however, as developers, feel free to use the development branch, all the way in between releases. Typically, we find that our most active users and even our team, we typically use the development branch so that we're always using the latest version of the bot, which has the features that we're currently working on. So, you can see from the results, the commits of developments, what we basically added over the last few weeks in the 0.34 release. And a lot of the commits were related to this new Gateway API module that we'll talk about today. In addition, we've made some substantial improvements to the beta Binance Futures connector and the perpetuals market-making strategy that was introduced in 0.33. In 0.33, we added the strategy, and the strategy allowed you to create orders that could be submitted for the Binance Futures connector. And in this release, we added some additional changes that allows you to set a trailing stop or to set a price where the bot would sell the position, because or close the position, because one big difference when you're trading perpetuals versus spot is that when a trade occurs, you open a position, and the position then requires additional management because it's you're using margin to do it, and therefore if the margin is sufficient, you have to liquidate. And so that's why I think for the main kind of additional complexity with derivative exchanges is the need to manage these derivative positions after they've been created. So our approach with Binance Futures, that connector is, we recognize that trying to model every aspect of it can be very complex. So we've chosen to focus on the perpetuals product and to introduce that connector as a beta and to gradually kind of add additional functionality to it as the community requests. And hopefully that will prevent that connector from kind of becoming overly complicated and deviating too much from what the normal spot exchange connectors look like. But we are seeking feedback from the community. So if there's additional functionality you want, if there's some type of trading strategy that you want to employ that's not available, please let us know. We're actively soliciting feedback on that connector so that we know what to add and what to build so that it will get used. We're a bit overall. We don't want to add everything because we recognize that not every algo trader out there is using all the different features. So hopefully we're adding the features to the Binance Futures connector that allow people to make money. And so that's why we're seeking kind of like, what trading strategies are people interested in? Are there some like kind of basis arbitrage strategies that you wanted to put on? And I think that's why we like to solicit advice. In addition, we also made a lot of changes to kind of we also refactored a lot of the documentation and some of the things in this release. And finally, I think if you kind of look through the commit history in GitHub the last few weeks, you also see that we also made some changes to a number of the issues. Like I think we fixed some issues with crypto.com as well, and we also we also updated. We also updated substantially how the balancer strategy works as a result of this new release. So I should say, feel free to list any questions you have in the chat if you have questions about the release specifically. And I will now spend more time and drill down into how the architecture for this new gateway component in Hummingbot works. Okay, so I'll switch over to this Notion document. This is a work in progress reference document that we've created to tell both our internal testing team as well as external developers how this new module works. Right now it's still work in progress, so we're not publishing it on our developer docs yet. However, once it gets a little more complete, we do intend on publishing it to the developer docs, hopefully sometime in the next month or two. In general, the reason we designed this architecture is because Hummingbot is a Python-focused client. It's in Python because we know that a lot of traders kind of have a data science background, and they want to take a lot of data and analyze it and use that data to control how the trading works. And Python, because it's become the standard for data science, is the natural choice for algorithmic trading software. However, especially as we're integrating into more protocols, a lot of them have copied Ethereum, and because Ethereum has a very strong JavaScript-based community, a lot of the protocols out there also use JavaScript. So they really kind of have the JavaScript-focused SDKs, and the developer community is very oriented towards JavaScript. And so that's why when we integrate with protocols, it's really a lot easier to use the native modules and SDKs that are produced by each of these protocols. But that also presents a problem because Hummingbot is in Python. Using JavaScript in Python is possible, but there's a lot of workarounds that you do in order to make it work. And so we've come up with Gateway as kind of a way to allow a Python-based trading software to still access protocols, but allow these protocol connectors to use the native SDKs of those protocols. And so that's why Gateway is like kind of like a light API web server that Hummingbot uses to wrap transactions that are sent to protocols. So the way that I think about this is that the Hummingbot as the main Hummingbot is still the command center. So that's where the entry point is for a trader. That's also where you're storing the logic, like the variables that you're controlling the parameters are housed in Hummingbot. However,
hey, sorry, Mike. I think there are some folks on the chat. They're trying to hop on to the call.
Oh, got it, got it. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, you mean the waiting list, right?
Yeah, in the
Okay,
in the
got it.
waiting room.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, that's okay. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I didn't see those folks. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. I think next time we'll use maybe I'll try to use a link that has a password so that you know we'll get rid of the meeting room. But yeah, hopefully this will work better logistically next time. So welcome the new folks who joined. Sorry if you guys kept waiting out there. So we yeah. So just to summarize a bit, we're going to do these developer calls more frequently because we really want to incentivize and support the Hummingbot developer community. So this one, our focus this time around is a deep dive into the new Gateway module. And so Gateway is a light JavaScript-based API web server that allows Hummingbot to interact more seamlessly with blockchain protocols, which have a strong JavaScript focus. Yeah, thanks everyone. If you could put yourself on mute, appreciate. Yeah, you could kind of like mute yourself if you're on mute. Otherwise, I just mute everyone. Okay. Yeah, I muted everyone. If someone wants to unmute and ask a question, you know, let me know. But yeah, just check. Actually, I think okay, you should be able to take yourself off mute. If you can't take yourself off mute, put something in the chat, and we'll try to fix it. But kind of going on. So Gateway is a light API web server that allows Hummingbot to interact with protocols. And so with protocols, just make sure there's no waiting room. Okay, and so the way it works is Hummingbot is kind of like still the command center. And so that's where you still, it's a primary entry point for the user. It's where the keys are stored, and it maintains both the global as well as the protocol specific variables. So for example, for Ethereum protocols, gas is a big part of it. And so how you set gas, are you setting the gas price manually, or are you pulling gas price from some dynamic API and then using that in your trading? So that's an example of logic that is set in the Hummingbot part of the code base. Another thing you might want to set is for a protocol like Balancer, there's a variable called max swaps, which controls how much gas you're paying. Sometimes if you're, because gas is a kind of fixed cost, if you're trading small amounts, you probably want to make gas as low as possible. So for Balancer, you probably want to pass in a value of 1 into this parameter and lower the gas. However, if you're trading large amount, let's say $10,000 or more, then gas becomes a smaller amount of the trading, your trading cost, and then you care more about the price. You care more about getting the best possible price. So that's a case where you want to set the max swaps variable in Balancer to something larger, like 4 or 5. So so that's another variable that's in the Hummingbot client because it's a parameter that the user may want to change. And in general, what we're trying to do is kind of have Hummingbot do the same thing for every protocol that it connects to. And it's calling the same API endpoints in Gateway. Meanwhile, Gateway, it's kind of like, it's acting as a wrapper for the transactions that are controlled by Hummingbot. It's an optional add-on. So currently we have it as a separate Docker installation. And so really it's only needed for strategies like AIM and ARB that are dealing with protocol connectors. So and also that's why because it's a JavaScript library, it's JavaScript Express, a web server. It can use npm modules that are produced by protocols like Terra and Balancer and Uniswap that facilitate trading, and that allows Hummingbot not to have to reinvent the wheel and instead just use exactly what's produced by every protocol. Gateway also maintains some constants. So these might be URLs for some public node that the protocol maintains. There might be specific addresses for smart contracts that are used in trading, or maybe some maybe transaction specific gas limits that tells Hummingbot how much gas they should use, how much gas they should actually allocate for every transaction. And so that's the general idea here. And so if we look at the communications in terms of how it works, these are two separate processes that are running on a machine. And so gateway is it's basically it uses the port on the machine, and so that's how it communicates, how it allows itself to be found by Hummingbot. Now that does present a security risk if gateway is accessible by the public or by anyone at large. And so because Hummingbot is designed as local client software, we've designed gateway to also kind of sit in the same machine as where Hummingbot is installed. And then if they're in the same machine, then we can use HTTPS, so encrypted communications to ensure that only Hummingbot can talk to gateway and it's authenticated. And so the way that works is we use something called a self-signed certificate that is generated by Hummingbot. And then that way gateway is looking for that certificate and ensuring that all communications passed to it is using that certificate that Hummingbot generated. And that prevents any external actor. So even if even the port was wide open and anyone could access that port, because it's only looking for communications that has a certificate, it prevents external actors from being able to access it. This is important because currently in the current design, Hummingbot includes the private key in the communications to gateway. The reason we do that is because the key is encrypted in Hummingbot. And so gateway, we felt that the things like keys should only be held in one place. And that allows encryption to kind of make sure they're safer. And so that allows us not to have the key in gateway as well as in Hummingbot. So, and so because the private key is essentially sent every single time there's a transaction that needs to be signed to gateway, we believe that having this HTTPS layer on top of that is extremely important to make sure that even if there's two levels of security here. The first is that both Hummingbot and gateway are sitting on the same machine, and so your machine hopefully it's not accessible to external actors. But the other level of security is that gateway requires this certificate and looks for that certificate when it's being used. So and also one more thing is that all API requests to gateway are post requests. So that's also kind of it's also a little more safer than gets. So to do this, to set this up, the first thing you do is to generate a certificate in Hummingbot. And so that there's this generate certs command that we added in the last release. Afterwards, then you install gateway. So gateway is a Docker container. And so just like Hummingbot, we have an installation script. We have a similar one for gateway right now. And so we actually recommend that you install both the Docker version of gateway and the Docker version of Hummingbot side by side, and they should work well with one another. So when you install gateway, you'll answer some questions that walks you through the installation process. So currently, gateway supports two different types of protocols, one for Ethereum and one for Terra. When you install for the Ethereum version, you'll basically set up access to both Balancer, Uniswap, and other future Ethereum protocols. And similarly for Terra, Terra is a separate blockchain, so that's why it's a separate kind of setup process. But in the future, if there are other exchanges on Terra or other protocols, other kind of layer 2 protocols, then I think we can also support multiple Terra protocols via Gateway as well. And finally, the way that Gateway links up to the Hummingbot certificate is that it uses the passphrase in step 1 to decrypt the encrypted certificate. So that's why when you generate the cert, you're entering a passphrase that's used to encrypt it, and then you basically take the same passphrase and you put it into the Gateway installation process, so the Gateway knows how to decouple it. Finally, Gateway by default will run on port 5000, and that's also the port that Hummingbot looks for. But there's a possibility you have something else running on port 5000, and in that case, then Gateway would automatically increment and install on port 5001. If that happens, then you should go back to Hummingbot, and there's a way. I think there's a config gateway port command where you can set the port for Gateway from 5000 to 5001 or 5002 or whatever port it's actually running on. Yep, so you can see on the port. So now I'm going to go and discuss a bit more about how the API works and how communications between Hummingbot and Gateway kind of flow. But before I do that, are there any questions from the audience about the architecture or the kind of installation process of Gateway? Okay, all right, we'll move on then. This section kind of describes the 5 general kind of ways that that Hummingbot and Gateway communicate with one another. So the first thing that we have to do is to authenticate, to connect Hummingbot and connect that to the address, the wallet used by the user for the protocol. So currently the authentication process happens in Hummingbot. So for Ethereum, we have a library, we've added Hummingbot that allows it to connect to Ethereum addresses, and we have something similar for Terra as well. So currently it kind of looks like this. In the future, we may add this authentication step into Gateway so that it's kind of consistent across every protocol. However, because Hummingbot from the get-go has always supported Ethereum and Ethereum-based decentralized exchanges, we decided to keep that same architecture for now and authenticate in Hummingbot while doing everything else, kind of like through Gateway. But that might change later on. So that's why you still use a connect command in Hummingbot to connect to a protocol, and so you can connect Ethereum or you can connect Terra. So this actually for the public, what that means is that adding new protocols is still a bit complicated currently, because you kind of have to like add the protocol like logic to Gateway, and then you also have to kind of like handle something else, authentication by Hummingbot. So that's what I would recommend that if you're interested in building connectors to other protocols, I think on the Ethereum side, it's actually very much doable because everything can be done in Gateway and can take advantage of the existing Ethereum kind of bridge. But if you're doing a totally new layer 1 protocol, like let's say Solana or Algorand out there, please get in contact with us. We want to support users in doing that, but it may be hard for you to do that independently without some guidance from us. But in terms of the 4 kind of like Gateway supported transactions, there's kind of like, we think there's 4 general steps that that Hummingbot has to do to use a new protocol. So so after authentication, we think these 4 steps are pretty standardized for every protocol out there. And so the 4 steps are, the first one is to fetch the gas limit. And in Ethereum, this is basically how much resources is required to mine a particular transaction. For other chains, this call might be something else. But essentially, this idea is that there are specific transaction-specific, constants or numbers needed by Hummingbot to estimate how how expensive or how much price, what price this transaction should be at. And so, if we have lots of different protocols, lots of different types of transactions, Hummingbot doesn't need to remember all those different things. Instead, it would be better if the transaction-specific information occurs in gateway. For example, how much gas should this one particular balancer transaction need? How much gas does this Uniswap transaction need? So these are kind of things that Hummingbot should be able to fetch. And so that's why the first step is that Hummingbot fetches a gas limit from the connector when when is before it calls the transaction. So for example, for Uniswap, there's a endpoint called /Uniswap/gas limit, and then basically what it tells you is the gas limit that it should use for buying and selling transactions on Uniswap. Similarly, for Balancer, they're the same thing. But for Balancer, as I mentioned earlier, the max swaps variable has a big impact on how much gas is used. So for example, if you don't add this max swaps parameter, then we default use 4. So then the gas limit ends up being about $600,000 or 600,000. However, if you pass in a max swaps number equal to 1, then it's gonna this is actually 1 here. And it's gonna result in a much lower number because it's gonna use a smaller number of max swaps. So if gas is twice as much versus in one swap versus another, that has a big impact on transaction costs, especially given how high Ethereum costs are. So that's why I think it's important to get the gas correct when you're trading on Ethereum. For other chains like Terra, which doesn't have the concept of gas, we don't have this implemented yet. So it's really only for Ethereum. However, even for other protocols, as they get more built out, there probably will be the notion of transaction costs, and they'll be more important as they get more competition and usage. So, if gas does become an issue for Terra in the future, then we can also add something similar. The next thing you have to do, kind of basically for every single trade, is to get the price. So every tick, Hummingbot fetches the price for a buy transaction, and it also fetches a price for a sell transaction, and that's how it knows whether there's an arbitrage opportunity or not. And so fetching the price is something that you have to do all the time. So that's why for each protocol, we've created a buy price endpoint and a sell price endpoint. And the idea here is that you can get for buy price, you can feed it a token, a base token, a quote token, and an amount. And using that standardized kind of set of parameters, the response will basically tell you how much price, what is the best price that you can get if you swap one for the other. And in certain protocols, you may also need like a trade object, basically the route for the trade that you can then use to execute that trade and get that price. We use it separately for buy and sell because if you look at how a lot of these protocols work, they typically have a separate function for swapping something in versus swapping something out. In one, you're passing in something that you want. You know the quantity that you want to give to the protocol, and the price is how much you want to get back out. So that's an example of a sell. But for a buy, you know how much you want to get back, and the price is the amount that you have to give to the exchange. So that's why the buys and the sells are a little bit different. But what we've done is for each protocol that Gateway Chrome supports, Uniswap, balancer, as well as Terra, we've created the same kind of buy price endpoint and gateway and sell price that allows us to work with Hummingbot. Finally, afterwards, then the last kind of steps is after you've kind of you fetch information about the transaction, you fetch the price, you know what price is available in the current market, and then at that point the bot will decide, okay, I found an arbitrage opportunity. It's time to go and submit the transaction, and then wait for it to be confirmed. And so that's the last two steps in the process. Just like we have buy price and sell price, there's also a buy and sell transactions that are available in Gateway. And so in each of these transactions, the parameters are fairly standardized, so that so that for Hummingbot it can call the same endpoints for every single protocol, and Gateway handles it differently. After it sends, there's another poll for transaction status endpoint that Hummingbot uses to then check for status and then report back and complete the rest of the arbitrage strategy. Finally, we have a few other endpoints that are kind of like for miscellaneous utility purposes. For instance, fetching the balances for Ethereum tokens, fetching the allowances, and approving transactions. So that's really Gateway in a nutshell. Currently, it's a separate open source repository under the same Apache 2 license that's in a separate repository under the in our organization, and it's still a separate Docker container you install. In the future, we might take everything and put it in the same repository for convenience purposes, but right now it's still separate. So that's why if you go into you can go to Discord. GitHub, and then you can see all the code for Gateway on the development branch here, and we will, and just like today when we merge Hummingbot to master and publish the latest release, we'll do the same thing for Gateway as well, and have a master version that people can use. So if you go into Gateway, you can see how it works already. So if you can see kind of like the structure of the repository, and you can see kind of how each of how the API works already. If you look at kind of see these other places, so for instance, for Ethereum, you should be able to kind of parse this and see how it works from the API as well. Any questions about Gateway? If you do want to ask a question, please drop it in the chat. So it looks like we have probably about 14 people on the line right now. Some people from our team, but a lot of people externally as well. So if you have a question about Gateway or any other aspect of Hummingbot, please drop it in the chat. Okay, well, so that was pretty much it for Gateway. So let me just stop sharing my screen right now. So as I wait for some more questions from the audience, I'll talk a little bit more about our kind of release schedule for Hummingbot and how we're planning to support developers next year. So as I mentioned at the very beginning of the call, we've seen a big interest from developers in the community in adding to Hummingbot and really using Hummingbot as a framework upon which to build all types of different trading strategies. So this is something we want to support. We're really excited by the fact that Hummingbot is turning to more of a general purpose open source tool because our mission from the very beginning has always been to democratize algo trading of all kinds. And market making is only one strategy, but people are are doing like, just regular, whether it's trend following strategies, directional strategies, or even strategies that help you, just trade a little bit more better, like something that helps you buy or sell a block of tokens, something that kind of makes it more convenient for you to do your trading. I think those are all fair game in terms of trading strategies for Hummingbot. But for us, because we have a limited team, we're really focused on adding connectors to different protocols, exchanges, and so enabling people to build strategies. So that's why I think one of the big initiatives we have next year is to support custom strategies. We have a developer tutorial that was developed, I think, about a year ago by an open source engineering team at Cornell. So we're going to sometime next year revamp that and make that better. And also, we're planning to add more boilerplates that helps people kind of like add strategies without having to kind of create 5 different files and do all those type of things. So overall, I think custom strategies and enabling people to really do whatever they want with Hummingbot is a big focus for us next year. And that's also why we're investing more resources into doing calls like this, having a regular cadence where every release we go through what's new and then do a deep dive on a topic like the one that I just did today. So there's one question, we'd love to see collaboration out there. So, don't be shy, feel free to ask us whatever you like. So Eric asks, thanks for the session. I'm mostly interested in liquidity mining and the ability to properly customize strategies. Is there going to be a live event soon to address queries toward this feature of Hummingbot? Yes, absolutely. So this is, I'm really glad you asked this question. And this is actually something that we've started to kind of like to work on as well. So, so there's a couple of things we're doing to try to do this. And I would say there's probably 2 larger projects that we're planning for like the first quarter next year that we think will really help people do this. So one of them is something called a liquidity mining strategy. So actually I can share my screen again and talk about the specific tickets, which should help. Actually, I use our so one thing we try to do is to maintain a Hummingbot roadmap. This is under our projects board, and under Wiki, this shows kind of like basically the things we're working on in every release. So this is what we shipped in the last few releases. This is what we're working on currently. But there should also be actually we should also add more columns for what we're working on the next few releases as well, and we'll try to add that later. So we have this this is actually our internal version of this board. And so one thing we're working on right now is something called liquidity mining strategy. This is there's some details on GitHub under ticket 2669. And the idea behind this strategy is that it's a new strategy that better connects Hummingbot with what's available on Hummingbot Miner. So currently, right now, it's like there's not a lot of integration between the two. So when you're liquidity mining, you're just running, probably 5 or 6 different bots in Hummingbot, and it's probably a lot of, a big pain in the ass to manage all those different bots. So the idea behind the strategy is that you can run multiple bots across all markets from the same. You can basically run one single bot that accesses different markets, different liquidity mining markets, and kind of places orders on multiple campaigns at the same time. So we're still in the process of kind of figuring out what parameters are available to this, how to kind of set it up. But overall, the idea behind this is that it should make it a lot easier to do liquidity mining from Hummingbot on multiple campaigns. And in the future, once we have more APIs, more public APIs in Miner, I think maybe we can also have a strategy, automatically allocate capital to the highest yielding markets or other things, or maybe like the lowest volatility markets, or other things like that help users do liquidity mining and manage it better. I would say this is probably our current focus in terms of like a longer term, larger projects, and I would expect this to ship probably sometime in the February release. The other thing that we're working on that I think a lot of people have asked for is the ability to integrate external signals and data into Hummingbot. Right now, it's still a design ticket. So right now it's a design ticket in our icebox. So it's here on GitHub. It is 2405. So and this is really kind of like because we know that a lot of people are looking for, basically they want to control the bot using data. So this might be data from TradingView. It might be data from the eventual liquidity mining APIs that we're going to have. But overall, I think integrating data into Hummingbot is something that everyone really wants to do. So currently, we're kind of like looking at this is from we're looking for design comments. One of our team members who used to work for a prior bot company has some general ideas. But overall, this is something that we're looking to like really spend time in design right now. And then after we kind of finish, this big ticket, I think this one is probably the next big thing. So if you guys have any comments or suggestions on how we should do this, or what tools you want to see us integrate into, please leave comments on this particular issue. And it's something that hopefully we'll try to do in early part of next year. This is a question from Gabrielle. Gabrielle is a longtime member of the Hummingbot community, and he asks, how does Hummingbot guarantee the integrity of performance/trade attribution to multiple bots running on the same account, both in case of exchange account and Ethereum key? How can risk exposure parameters be set, and is order side adjusted based on the maximum exposure target? Also, in regard to maximum stop loss, is it possible to set stop loss of a bot to a percentage of the allocated amount per strategy as opposed to account drawdown? Those are some great questions. Let me take each one individually. So in the case of how do you guarantee trade/performance attribution for multiple bots on the same account? So I would say this actually, I think this is actually I would say a kind of an issue. It's actually hard for us to do this via exchange accounts, because accounts are not like bot specific. So this is actually one reason why we kind of took down a performance attribution dashboard in Miner, because we felt like it wasn't accurate. So overall, I would say overall actually attribution, I would say from like the client, I would not expect Hummingbot to do a great job of separating different trades made in the same account by the bot, because it just doesn't know that. So I think what I've seen is, for people who really want precise attribution down to the account level, most of them are using either sub accounts with Hummingbots for different kind of things they're tracking, or they are basically just setting different exchange accounts for different parts of Hummingbot. I think we actually, for the client actually, currently I think attribution in terms of trade log is not very accurate, because if there is a network like failure, let's say like if there's a network failure for a few minutes, like the trades, like, because Hummingbot is constantly asking exchange for the list of trades and trying to make sure it has a list of trades. Like right now, we're not using the historical API to do that. We're just using the live trade API. And so the list of trades in Hummingbot may actually not match what's on the exchange if like there's some weird like network issue. So this is something that I think they're taking out there for this. So in the future, I think we should be able to use the historical trades API to like dedupe or fill in any missing gaps. But that's an additional enhancement we'll have to do later on for Hummingbot. Generally speaking, I would say right now, if you really want to assess performance very precisely, I would actually recommend doing it yourself using the exchange APIs, as opposed to kind of relying on the data that Hummingbot has. Second question was, how can maximum risk exposure parameters be set. And in order side, so I think this is also something that I would say, I think that right now we have the bounce limit feature that we added recently to allow users to do this. So you can set the maximum balance for used by the trader. So you check out the bounce limit command, Gabrielle. I think that should get you what you're looking for there. Finally, for the stop losses, yeah. So the kill switch right now is probably pretty rudimentary, and so we actually have a story to kind of convert that into more of a script, so that people can add more kind of like, basically more functionality that customizes how the kill switch is done. And so that one I think is also on the roadmap. So here, let's see. Yeah, so we have this one to create a kill switch script, and the overall idea behind this one is to kind of give people more flexibility with kill switch, and to allow them to use script that can allow them to customize how it works. So yeah, so these are kind of like basically these are the issues we're thinking about, but right now what we're trying to do is trying to make sure that we're kind of constantly hitting the large stories first, in addition to some of these smaller ones like this. So for us, I think that for the upcoming release, the upcoming 0.35 release, that one is probably going to be more of a utility release, where we kind of go in and fix a lot of bugs and try to clean up a lot of stuff we've added recently. And so our target date for that is January 11th, 4 weeks from today. And then hopefully that means the February release, the one that's another 4 weeks after that, should have the liquidity mining strategy and some of the larger things that we're working on right now. But in the meantime, we're always looking for feedback from users on what to work on. So like right now, I would say, because our team is really tied up for the next month or two, we're really looking for what are the large things that we can do at Hummingbot next year that can really make a difference for users and to help them perform and trade better. So you've like, if there's especially if there's larger tickets like that, please let us know. And next year, I think we'll try to kind of like build a system that allows users to more influence what we're doing in a more like open and transparent way. So we recognize that right now there's a lot of stuff happening, but a lot of it is kind of hidden. There's hundreds of stories in GitHub, and they're not very well organized. And I think overall, we're always looking to use tools like this to get more feedback from the community and to just make sure we're working on the right stuff. So it's definitely something that's we're not. I don't think we're doing a great job of right now, but it's because Hummingbot, a lot of our success is really driven by all of you guys who are building on top of it and using and trading it. We're going to try to get better at getting feedback from you guys next year. Well, thank you very much for joining the call. I think that marks the end of today's call, and we'll try to do another one just like this in about 4 weeks. Well, thanks. Bye, everyone.